Welcome. My name is Lisa McKenzie. I'm the Regional Program Manager for Region 10.
And I'm Maggie Myers. I'm the Regional Program Manager for Region 6.
And we're glad that you're joining us today for Advisory Council Basics. This presentation is designed to give you an overview of the Advisory Council that works hand in hand with your center. So the who, what, why, when, where, and how. So today's objective is that you will be able to use provided tools and resources to locate the needed information. So you're not going to be an expert in all things Advisory Council by the end of this session. However, you will know where and how to access the information to get the answers that you need to your questions and gain knowledge to develop your council. So what tools are we going to be referring back to today? We're going to be talking about the Administrator Guidebook, specifically Section 3 that has to do with advisory councils, and the contract, Section 2.02 and Sections C and G in that section of the contract. The guidebook and the contract provide information on the role, authority, membership, meetings, and other contractual requirements of the Center's Advisory Council. So those are the two tools you will look to for that information. The third tool we're going to be referring to today is the Division of Family Resource and Youth Service Center website, and specifically the Forms and Documents tab, and then looking at the Advisory Council Toolkit section. And then the last tool or resource that we will guide you to is your center bylaws. And those are going to be different for each center. So it's important that you locate your individual center bylaws, and that should be located on Frisk Counts in your CPP tab under your AC listing.
When we talk about the why of advisory councils, the purpose is described in the Administrator's Guidebook section on advisory councils, Section 3. There is also a document in the Advisory Council Toolkit on the division website that's titled Advisory Council Purpose and Importance. Both of these describe how the Frisk Advisory Council is an integral part of a successful Frisk. It brings together all the stakeholders, parents, school staff, local community agency representatives, and students to maximize input and resources for the benefit of the students, families, and your community. Advisory councils help in every step of the planning and implementing of the center's program plan. Advisory councils provide input to the coordinator in all stages of center programming: planning, developing, publicizing, implementing, evaluating, and modifying. Council members can support their centers through hands-on involvement in center activities, through promotion of center programs and events, and even through advocacy for the center in their school and community. Councils have no supervisory authority over center staff, but they can provide unique perspectives and recommendations for center services. Councils also provide oversight of center operations. So as you can see, a strong advisory council is foundational to a successful center, but you don't have to take my word for it. Let's see what some veteran coordinators have to say about what makes a strong advisory council.
What makes a strong advisory council?
Let me tell you, when I first became a coordinator, I created an advisory council that were all my people and all just yes people. But I learned quickly that didn't make me a better center and make me a better coordinator. They were fun to hang out with, but they didn't improve me. I had to find people who were from every walk and every area. I needed diversity, and I needed support structures from the community and from my parents to make me better. So don't just surround yourself with your people. Find others to build you and make you better.
I think it's real simple. You just let them know that it's not about you, the coordinator, it's about us as a team, and just letting them know that their voice is important and keeping them involved. So
I think a strong advisory council is getting people in there who believe in your mission and care about your community and love the families just as much as you do and want them to have the best lives.
A strong advisory council to me is making sure that they are diverse, not just with racial backgrounds or ethnic backgrounds, but also a mixture of those that are strong within your school building, but they have different roles in your school building, and also with the community. If you get people that are diverse in the community, not the ones that are just the health department, but you want someone that's maybe retired from the school system or working with the library, something like that. And then also with your parents and your students, making sure that they are cohesive of the whole school. So if you have 2 different programs in your school, making sure you have 1 student from each. With your parents, making sure you combine the parents from each of those programs.
I think what makes a strong advisory council is community partners that are invested in the same goal.
I think what makes a strong advisory council is keeping them continually involved in every program that you do. We constantly give them information on our activities with our schools, but we also include them in our activities. They help us with our back to school nights, our community activities, and we just constantly keep them in the know on what's going on with our community.
So when we talk about who is on our advisory council, we're talking about membership and officer roles. So your advisory council is made up of parents, caregivers, school staff, community, and students. And when you look in the administrator guidebook and the contract, there are requirements for the composition of your advisory council. So according to the contract, you are required to have a minimum or at least a third parents or caregivers, and no more than 1/3 school representatives. So if you struggle with math, we have made it simple. Go to your resources on the Division of Frisk website. In the Advisory Council Toolkit, there is this lovely chart you see on the screen, and it is called the Frisk Advisory Council Membership Ratio Guide. So you can look and say, well, I have 10 members. I know that I need to have at least 4 parents, and I cannot have more than 3 school staff, and that would keep you in compliance. You also are required to have community representatives on your council. And then if you are a youth service center or a family resource youth service center, you are required to have at least 2 youth on your council. So these are important requirements to remember when you're looking at your membership representation. And then, as we heard in the video and from our veteran coordinators, diversity is important. You want your council to represent your school population. You are also allowed to have non-voting representation on your council, and that would be what your role is as a coordinator, and your principal or assistant principal as well. They are to serve as just members, but non-voting. So you can also have other people that want to attend your meetings. They can be non-voting members or guests. So now you don't have to take my word for it. Let's go to our veteran coordinators to hear what they say, how they determine the best members for their advisory council.
How do you determine the best parents, staff, youth, and community partners to recruit?
So for parents, what I do is I pay attention to our sign-in sheets on the parents who are engaged most of the time, including those who are parent pickups, because realizing that their schedules might be a little bit more flexible. So those that are engaged most of the time, for the parents, for staff, I try and get the staff that have a flexible schedule, whether it's the counselor, the librarian, people like that. Again, their schedule is a little bit easier. And then as far as community partners, mostly those that I'm engaged with on a regular basis, whether that's the extension office, whether that's someone at the food bank. Again, those community partners that I work with on a regular basis, because they're already invested in our children, and I try and reach out to them to make sure that they're an additional part of our community school.
I pay attention to the parents who are actively coming to school. I pay attention to parents who are picking up their kids. I stood in the car lane line and watched about first 2 months of school and watch which parents are dropping off all the time, and I watch which parents was also picking up. That's when I tagged, and I was like, I have advisory council. I notice you're always here. Do you have extra time that you might want to participate? Either I'm gonna get a yes or no, but luckily they said yes. As far as my community partners go, I paid attention to those who just donate on their own, and I told them, you already like Arlington and you want to help us. I would like to keep you as a partner. Would you be willing to be on my advisory council? And luckily they have said yes. And my staff, they're part of the school, so I'll never get a no from my staff. So that's how I determine who's going to be on my advisory council.
Yeah, so one of the things that we do is that at the end of each year, we have a survey that we send out to each of our members on our advisory council. We ask them if they're going to be returning for the following year, and if they're going to be able to serve the following year. And if they can't, we ask them for a recommendation of someone to replace them on our advisory council.
Well, one of the first things you want to do is you want to identify folks who have a lot of energy. This is a job that you really have to have a true passion for. The second thing is you want to also look and see if there are community members or parents or staff that have a center of influences. It takes all of us to survive, and so you just never know who comes in front of you, what resources they have, what connections you have to be able to address or remove a barrier that is addressing a child or a student that comes in front of you. Another thing that I do is just having someone who is professional. One of the things that we have to do, we have long hours, long nights, we have stressful times, and we have to have people who are measured all the way from beginning to the end. And so when it's holiday assistance times and we're in that 25th hour, you want to make sure that you're interacting with people who are staying cool, calm, and level-headed. So I kind of take those three approaches. I think that anybody as a new coordinator can identify those folks and be able to just make life a whole lot easier as you're planning and following your CPP. So.
Awesome. I couldn't have said it better myself. But if you did not get enough recruitment tips from our veterans, again, use your resources, go to the division website, and in the Forms and Documents tab, you will find the Advisory Council Toolkit. And there is a great little form in there that is titled Advisory Council Recruiting Tips. And it gives you tons of resources on how to target good members for your parents, your community, staff, youth. The one thing that I want to note is that immediate family members of your center staff may not be advisory council members. So this would be a conflict of interest. And then also what a lot of people they forget is that if you have a parent, but they're also a staff member, they cannot be serving as a parent representative on your council. And that would happen to me a lot. I would get a great parent and I would recruit them to the council, and then my principal would steal them away and recruit them as a substitute teacher. Well, guess what? If they're sub on the sub list, they're paid by your district, and therefore they can't be a parent member, and you're back to the drawing board. So go to the toolkit and dig into those recruitment tools. Another thing that I would recommend is don't downplay the value of your council with your words. This was a mistake that I made early on as a coordinator, and I definitely learned from my mistakes. Is I would say, well, we only have 5 meetings a year, and they won't last more than 45 minutes, and we will make sure that they're quick. Well, why would I want to devote my time to something that evidently doesn't have value? I don't. And so we need to change our focus and make sure that we're not downplaying the value of our council with our words. Yes, we do only meet 5 times a year, but those meetings are jam-packed full with information and planning and implementing and modifying our program services to make sure that we're meeting critical needs of our students. So that's an important job. Are you willing to commit as a member to be there, 95% of the time? Great, you're in. That's how you sell them. That's how you make sure that when you're recruiting, you put emphasis on it is important. Your meetings don't last long, but you need them there. So yeah, that's my tips on recruiting. Now, don't take my word for it. Let's go back to our veteran coordinators and hear some more tips on membership recruiting. What strategies do you use to recruit advisory council members?
Well, one of the first things I do is I look at maybe some of the younger students in the building who have strong parents or PTA members. That way you have them for a longer period of time. They can follow you through kindergarten through 5th grade, or maybe 1st grade through 5th grade. And you'll have older parents eventually on your council, but as you're replacing them, maybe start early. Another way to get community partners is look at who helps maybe with your Friday food bags or your food boxes for your families. What agency does that? Or churches who help you at Christmas time or Thanksgiving. Maybe try and recruit some of those members that are already helping in your center, and then they could help more. It can just build that relationship.
Say the strategies that I use to recruit are just to seek out community partners who are invested in kids and in their community. I sit on an Hebron Business Association council, and by seeking out members on that council that are invested in our kids and our students, wanting to do the best for kids, seeking them out and asking them if they would be interested in being on my advisory council. So I find out, trying to find out people out there who really want to be involved in the schools, seeking out teachers, anybody through the schools or at your school, and having them invest in your advisory council.
Well, I have found that it's real tough to say no to me if I'm looking at you. And if you show up for an event, you're in real danger that I'm going to ask you to serve on the advisory council. And texting and all the social media stuff, that's all well and good, but it's much harder for somebody to tell me no to my face. So I directly ask everybody. Anytime I need anything, I come see them and I talk to them.
I like to utilize PTO members and other parents that are actively involved to try to get those people involved with our council.
Awesome. So now let's talk about officers and roles. And this is where you're going to need to dig into your bylaws, because every council, every center's advisory council will have different officers. All our councils have chairpersons, and this is somebody you're going to work closely with as a coordinator. This person really should be in charge of your meeting, calling it to order and handling the business part of your meeting. We recommend that your advisory council chairperson be a parent or a community person, because your job is to build leadership skills with your advisory council members. So what better way to do that with parents is to engage them as your chairperson. Usually your bylaws will also state what officers that you have. So I know I have some centers that have secretaries. I know some centers do, vice chair. So your bylaws will also state like how your officers are elected and the length of time that they serve. So it's really important that you dig into your bylaws and you make sure that you're aware what your bylaws say as far as your officers, their roles, and the time of length of service and how you're supposed to elect them.
So now, as we talk about what an advisory council does, we're first going to look at how meetings are structured. Most councils operate according to Robert's Rules of Order. In the Advisory Council Toolkit on the division website, there is a Robert's Rules of Order guidance document that provides some information and strategies to keep your meetings moving efficiently. In terms of the responsibilities of an advisory council, I'd like to draw your attention to another resource in that Advisory Council Toolkit. It's called Approvals and Reviews. This document identifies the items that require advisory council approval, as well as items that need to be reviewed by your council. For example, center budgets and amendments, bylaws changes, and center space changes all must be approved by your council. The implementation and impact reports, as well as the needs assessment data, should be reviewed by the council. So now let's take a moment and look at the documentation required for your council meetings. Coordinators are required to maintain agendas, minutes, and sign-in sheets for every advisory council meeting. These tools record completion of those council responsibilities. It is best practice to upload these items to your center page in Frisk Counts following meetings. There are some samples of agendas and minutes in the Advisory Council Toolkit on the division's website. This is one example of an advisory council meeting agenda. You'll notice that agendas usually take on an outline format, and all of the meeting elements are present in this agenda. You can see the approval of minutes from the previous meeting, the financial review and approval of the budget, a center report or program review. In this one, it's identified as old business and new business, as well as the standards of quality. These are all things that we would expect to see on every advisory council meeting agenda. This is another example of a meeting agenda, and all of those elements are present here as well. Approval of minutes, the financial report, center updates, and standards of quality. Minutes, however, are a narrative of what took place in the meeting. If you have an advisory council member who happened to miss a meeting, they should be able to review the minutes and see every item that took place. This is a portion of sample minutes pulled from the Advisory Council Toolkit on the division's website. This sample, if you look over it in its entirety, demonstrates best practice for council engagement. An engaged council benefits the coordinator and the center. There are many strategies to get your advisory council members to attend and actively participate in meetings, but you don't have to take my word for it. Let's see what these veteran coordinators suggest for maintaining council engagement.
How do you ensure members are engaged and actively participating?
Keep them involved, use their ideas, implement them, make them see the difference that they're making.
Yeah, so I think one of the most important things is constant communication. Not just communicating with them when you have an upcoming meeting, but maintaining that contact throughout the year. I know that we keep in touch with ours via email throughout the year. We send them updated information about the center. We let them know if we have a need, that we're looking for something specific. We ask them to put things on social media to help spread the word about events that are going on. And we of course use our parent and community volunteers at events we have at our center, such as our career fair. So just maintaining that constant contact with them and communication, and of course feeding them. We're very aware of what our members like and where they like to meet, so we try to do that fairly often so that we can keep them engaged.
We try really hard to get our advisory council members to each have a voice, and if I'm noticing someone isn't talking, I will say, Becky, what do you think about X, Y, and Z? Or it's really the kids that don't talk very often, so I'll be like, hey Sally, what do you think? Do you think this would actually work for your peers? Do you think this would work for you all? So that's really how I try to make sure everybody's focused and engaged.
First and foremost, just making sure they know that they have an important part to the advisory council, not coming to the table with decisions already made, but making sure that they understand that they're a part of the process and that their voice is heard. And when you have those different entities within your school, your teachers, your staff, your community, students, whatever, when their voices are heard and they can see that within your core components or your planning or your budget or whatever community projects, whatever you're doing, then they know that they're important to your center and they will actively be engaged.
I hold my meetings according to when they can come, and my parents are the ones that always show up no matter what. And then I make sure that they feel like they are a big part of it. I mean, they give their opinions, they show up and volunteer, they help us with the surveys. They just are really a big part of what we're able to do.
My advisory council also brings volunteers with them, so they're always like, let me make sure I can get off work and I'll find some friends to come with me and help.
So when and where do you have your advisory council meetings? Well, in the administrator guidebook and in the contract, another couple tools that we referenced several times during this presentation, it states that the advisory council must meet 5 times a year, every other month, excluding June and July. So if you start to get those 5 meetings in a year, you have to start your meetings either in August or September. So remember, have to meet 5 times a year, every other month, and we don't require meetings in June or July. Now, we have some councils that want to meet more regularly, and that is totally fine. That is the minimum. Also, remember to look at your bylaws, because your bylaws for your advisory council will state your requirements for your meetings. And they will also give you specifications on if you need to have a special call meeting. We also have to follow the open meeting law, which means that you have to advertise your meetings not only to your school population, but also to your community. So if you're having an advisory council meeting and you do a one call or send out an IC email blast, that's great. But you also have to have it advertised in a way that would be available to the community. So your school website or your district social media page, things like that. Other resources available talking about your meeting guidance is available on the Division of Frisk website in the Advisory Council Toolkit again, and it's called the Advisory Council Meeting Guidance. And this guidance includes information on having an in-person meeting, or if you choose to have virtual meetings or a hybrid. So it will really give you details of what is required to conduct that meeting in that manner. It is important that you have meetings that are convenient and accessible to your members. So I would suggest doing a survey to find out how they want to meet and when is the best time for them to meet. Again, like our veteran coordinator said before, value and respect their time, and really show them that you appreciate the work that they're doing while they're on the council. If you are bringing on a new member, it is crucial that you educate your new member on what their role is. So give them an orientation. And if you're not really sure where to start, again, go to your resources on the division website, and the AC, the Advisory Council Toolkit is a PowerPoint that will walk you through how to orient new advisory council. Or you can ask your RPM to come in and do a training for your entire council if you would like. But remember that your advisory council's role is to guide you in the work. So make sure that you're not the only one as the coordinator doing all the talking and participating in all the work of the meeting. Put that on your members as well. Now, let's look to our veteran coordinators and hear how they conduct their advisory council meetings.
How do you conduct your meetings and why?
So I do offer in-person and virtual every time we meet. I have found that with my meeting time, it's most convenient for mornings, and I like to offer the virtual option just because those that are community members or moms or parents or dads that have a job, they will still jump on if they're at work, but them actually physically getting away from their work and coming in sometimes poses a problem. So this offers them the opportunity to still jump on, be a part of the meeting, be engaged, and it is a super success.
With our advisor council meetings, it's very good to do them virtually, just to make sure that you get all of your attendance. However, in person is the best way to go, because that way you are seeing a lot of your people in person, you're able to get better feedback, see how reactions are, because reactions are hard to see virtually.
I conduct my meetings in person. I keep it as laid back as possible to make sure that they're involved and stay engaged. I provide, snacks and stuff for them as well.
Okay, all of my meetings are held in person because I feel in order to relate to one another, being face to face is a better way to get to know each other and get everybody's vibe. And sometimes people may say yes on paper, but their expression may say no. And I think I can feel people better and get their ideas to help with my programs to work out better when I see people face to face.
Well, I prefer to do my meetings in person. I just feel like you have more, a better connection with your advisory council. I'm in a high school, so it gives the students an opportunity to not be using technology and just have a more personal touch and give more input face to face.
And I too would prefer the in-person meetings, just because I feel like you can build personal relationships with the families, the community partners, and if they hear your heart, if they're right there, they hear your heart, then they're more apt to jump right in and help you with all the activities that you have at school.
I conduct my meetings on a virtual offer and an in-person offer. And I do this so my members have the opportunity to attend even if they can't attend in person. I survey them in the beginning of the year just to kind of see what they prefer. And I do have a mix normally of people that want to be in person and people that want to do the online version, because they just can't leave work for an hour, hour and a half, because sometimes we have some fun in our meetings. Sometimes we run a little longer than we planned, and I always offer lunch if they're in person. That way they, if we're around lunchtime, or snacks. I try to go by the Robert's Rules of Order as I conduct my meetings. We do make sure that our president runs the meeting, but most of the time they turn them over to the coordinator because we're the ones that have the majority of the information. I personally hope that we don't go away from the offer of virtual meetings, because it is such a great tool for us to be able to incorporate so many members into our meetings and get everybody to attend.
Now we're back to in-person meetings. Of course, during COVID, we had to do virtual. But we went back to in-person because I feel like I just like the in-person and seeing the people, and I just think it's easier to maybe see their reactions, because you know they might say one thing but their facial expressions tell you something else, and I just think they feel more comfortable in person, expressing, or I don't know, it's not really privacy, but I think it, you know, there's just a small group of people, it's closer contact, more informal, I think, and I don't know, I just like that being in person and the people contact, and I just think it works better than the Zoom meetings.
I conduct my meetings in person because I feel like it's more personal to me and it's a lot more productive.
I conduct my meetings in person. I just like the personal interaction of in-person meetings.
So in looking at how advisory councils operate and function, each coordinator should turn to and review their advisory council bylaws. These bylaws describe how the council will be governed. And as mentioned earlier, you can find those in Frisk Counts under the CPP tab and AC listing. There's a documents page there where your bylaws should be located. Each council's bylaws are unique, but they all must contain certain elements. They are listed here on your screen, but you can also find them in your administrator's guidebook in the advisory council section. As you can see, they provide a framework for the council's structure and the procedures. Bylaws should be reviewed with the council at least every other year. And if needed, the process for amending your bylaws is described within them. Sample bylaws can be found in the Advisory Council Toolkit on the Division of Frisk's website. As you heard from a veteran coordinator earlier, a diverse council that is empowered to take on a leadership role will make you a better coordinator and a better center. So how do we develop leadership in our council members? Let's find out from some veterans.
How do you build leadership skills within your council?
Well, I jokingly said put them to work, but that is very, very true. A lot of people don't just jump in. They're not as comfortable doing that. So give them assignments, make them a part of it. Start off small, you know, you don't want to overwhelm them. But also one of the ways I build leadership skills, I'm a youth service center coordinator, so I have to have youth on my advisory council. And I know we have to have 2, but I have 4. I have 1 for each grade level, and I'm only replacing the 9th grader each year. And then as I invite the 9th grader to come, I invite their parent to be on there as well. So then that's them working together, building that kind of relationship and bringing that to the council. And I look at some of the kids that are not your A students, they're not your football cheerleader people. We want a gambit of student representation. And if you get, I once had a student that had some behavioral issues, but she needed to learn leadership. And I'm telling you, she learned it as a member of the advisory council. And then she started taking over and doing a whole lot in the center and being that leader that she just needed something positive to put all her energies into. Parents can be the same way. Especially in a high school, it can be overwhelming for them to figure out where they fit. If you're a band parent, honey, I'm not going to ask you to do anything because you already have a life that's band. But some of those parents that want to be involved just don't know how to jump in. So you just have to be that person that can slowly bring them into the fold. I'm telling you, once you get them in there, they will take over things. They will do things for you. And it's wonderful to see that when that happens.
So I feel like the way that I build leadership skills with my advisory council is that when they give maybe a suggestion for a program or an idea, then I kind of give them the lead on that and say, tell me what that looks like, who can we bring on board to make that happen. And I think that just gives them some autonomy and makes them feel important, makes them feel like they are a part of the full council.
I do my best to get them involved and have them lead our meetings and even choose what they want to do rather than me choose things for them to do and give them things that they are passionate about to tackle with our center.
So in closing, I want to remind you of the tools and resources available to you when conducting effective and efficient Frisk Advisory Council meetings. You have the contract, the Administrator's Guidebook, the Advisory Council Toolkit on the division's website, and your council's bylaws. You will also be visiting a few Advisory Council meetings as a part of your new coordinator mentoring if you haven't already. Everything you need to know and do to run an effective advisory council is available to you. Also, you will receive instructions on the next steps to ensure that you receive credit for completing this training video. Thank you for your time and attention.